Good morning. This is the time and place for the zoning administrators hearings for September 16th, 2009. My name is Wolfgang Kraus, and I'll be the hearing officer today. We have 3 cases. At least the exhibits for 2 of them are posted on the panels directly behind me. The cases are all variances. So under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.43 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance can be granted if 4 required findings are present. And they are, number 1, that the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. And number 2, that there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. 3, that the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. And 4, that the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. If the evidence presented in conjunction with the application can demonstrate that the findings are present, then the case can be approved. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Notification for this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. Here's how the hearing itself will proceed. First, I'll read a description of the application. Then I'll make reference to other letters or communications from the public. The comments from other city departments are attached to the staff report, so I won't read all of those. Then I'll ask the applicant to come forward, give your name for the record, and present your case within a 15-minute time limit. And if you need a little bit more time, then I'll probably grant you that. After that, I'll listen to anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the application or in favor of the application, and try and do that within a 3-minute time limit if you can. And then at the end, I'll give the applicant a chance to make any closing comments to address things that might have come up as part of the earlier testimony, and I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. After that, I'll close the hearing, take the case under submission. Then sometime later, the decision will be prepared in writing. It'll be in the form of a letter which is sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses. And, of course, that's provided that you've left us your name and mailing address. Now, the date of the decision is the date that's on the letter itself. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision can be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal can get the necessary forms and information on how that works from planning staff located in our permit center right here on this floor. And if you haven't already done so, please fill out one of these speaker cards if you're going to be speaking, and give it to James, and we'll proceed then. Also, in addition to being on television, we're recording this on tape as part of the public record. So we're going to have a little change in order. I'm going to take case number PVAR 2009-023 at 901 North Glendale Avenue first. The applicant is Ahmed Gaderi, and this is an application for a variance to convert 2 oil and lube service bays into a food market with an existing 1163 square foot gas station without providing the required minimum lot size, landscaping, and setback requirements, again at 901 North Glendale Avenue in the C2 Community Commercial Zone. Our case planner is Gabe Risa, and would you like to tell us what's going to happen?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Kraus. Staff needs to renotice the subject property. Therefore, staff is requesting a continuance to October 7th.
Okay, what I'm going to do, since we have to renotice, I think I'll just take it off the calendar. I take it we will be sending out a new public notice
Yes.
to the, okay.
That's correct.
Then probably the best thing is just to take it off calendar. And anybody that's interested in that case will be getting a new public notice. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. So then, case number PVAR 2009-023 is hereby taken off the calendar, and it'll be re-advertised for a future hearing date. Okay, next case, case number PVAR 2008-043, which has been continued both from June 24th and August 19th, 2009. This is, again, 1372 Opeechee Way. The applicant is Garo Nazarian from Domus Design. Property owner is Jan de Kundihin. Case planner is Rather Duong. And this is an application for a standards and setback variance to legalize an unpermitted construction without meeting the zoning code in the following areas. Number 1, allow 8 consecutive retaining walls where only 3 walls are allowed. Number 2, retaining walls higher than 3 feet located within 5 feet of the interior property line. 3, separation between retaining walls less than 5 feet with a slope between walls of less than 2 to 1. Number 4 is allow a recreation room above a detached garage exceeding the maximum height permitted for an accessory building. Number 5, provide a 2-car garage where a 3-car garage is required. Number 6, detached accessory building with less than the required 10-foot interior setback. Number 7, in addition to a primary building that exceeds 30 feet in height with less than the required 6-foot interior setback. And this is, again, at 1372 Opeechee Way in the R1R Restricted Residential Zone, Floor Area Ratio District 2. And this is Lot 13, Block 18 of Selvas de Verdugo Tract. Okay. I think we had, in addition to the comments from other departments, which are part of the public record, I think we had some email communication from some interested parties. So let me ask the applicant to come forward and present your case.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Garo Nazarian with Domus Design. The subject property is a single-family dwelling unit that has been built in 1920s. Sometime after the original construction was completed, apparently there was a change of ownership, and then the new owner.
Can you? I have a feeling I'm going to ask you to speak into the mic a little bit.
Altered and remodeled the building in a substantial manner without a building permit, or at least it's unknown to us if it was with the permit or no permit. There is no record of any building permit for these issues. But this alteration, mostly it has been done in 1970s, late 70s or early 80s. In that period of time, this alteration occurred, and I couldn't find any document or record of the building permit. Which these alterations and additions, while apparently properly done, were implemented according to the verbal information provided by the various real estate agents on or about the 70s, about 35 years ago. These changes to the original structures, while they would have been illegal at that time, maybe, do not comply with the current code in Glendale today. The current property owner has purchased this property on October 2003, and he is willing to legalize the existing work and to provide additional safety measures and inspections if necessary to ensure the quality of the structure and the legal status of the building. About the findings, number 1, the property, it has been used as a single-family residence since 1920s, and no changes in its use are contemplated or requested. The second-story addition, the loft and the retaining walls were built many years ago, around mid-70s, late 70s, which is not very clear, but it's in that period of time. By others, and today an integral part of the structure. It's extremely complicated or maybe even impossible to remove 3 out of 6 retaining walls and still maintain the integrity of the slope and the property, which affects not only the subject property but also the neighbors' lots. By the same token, the second story and loft addition are not and have been for many years an integral part of the structure of the house itself. It would be unduly complicated to surgically remove at this point this old addition without affecting the safety of the main structure. The replacement of the one-car garage with a two-car garage can only have a positive impact, the sense that the more on-site covered parking space it has been added. As to issue of the setbacks, these are based today upon the total height of the building. This code was implemented after 1920s, the time of the construction of the original building, where and when the setbacks were determined. Per current code, on the west side, the setback is 1 foot 7 inches less than it would have been. If it was a new construction, on the east side, if the garage with the new game room were not attached to the main building, then the required setback based upon a total height of the 20 feet would have been only 4 feet. Similar cases are often considered an administrative exemptions and are thus permitted based upon the code section. Item number 2, most if not all requested variance items are deriving from the fact that the original building was built on 1920s and sometimes changes were implemented by others. That would have been legal and permitted at the time, but do require a variance today. The current owner is simply trying to comply with the current codes, and it's making a good faith effort to do so. Number 3, the use of the subject property, it's a single-family residential and it's intended to continue as such. This is compatible with the adjacent properties and in compliance with the zoning regulation and the general plan. All alterations, additions, and modifications would have been legal if permits were sought in a timely manner. Today, the entire structure is still in compliance with the current lot coverage and FAR. The building stand today with the exemption of the original setbacks to the building would have been a fully legal structure and building permit could have been secured as necessary. Item number 4, the total height of the building, which today in R1 zone, looking to the zoning ordinance, the regulations for the R1 zone.
You mean R1R, right?
R1R zone, yes, sorry. R1R zone, the FAR district number 2 by the code, the total FAR for the 179 square feet is allowed, which the existing structure, the total square footage, it's 3,092 square feet. The lot coverage, which is allowed to have a 40% of the lot coverage, the total again 17 square feet, but the existing structure's lot coverage is 2639 square feet, almost 60% of what is allowed. The minimum setback, the front setback, which is 15 feet today required, but the existing house is sitting back from the front property line, street property line, about 33 feet. Interior setback today by this, by today code, 6 feet is required, but this building, it has been built on 1920s with the setback that is there, 3 feet or even less than that. The height limit, the height it's 32 feet plus 3 feet for a pitch roof 3-in-12 slope, which that height it complies with the today height, but the setback issue, which has been built originally that way. There is no alteration on the setback. And even looking to the site plan and the condition of the site, on the east side of the property, the retaining wall, which is almost about 9 feet high, that it has been built according, by my knowledge and looking to this plan, it has been built during the original building construction, because that is the keeping the slope, and this house, it's about 3-4 feet from the property line.
You're talking about the one on the site plan at the top.
On the top, okay. Yeah. That is the way that the hill it has been cut and the construction done. So that it has not done by the current owner, and the owner, as I mentioned, the owner purchased this property on 2003, and all these retaining walls were there. We couldn't find any record of the permits, but some of them, it has been replaced because it was a wooden retaining wall. The owner, to give more security and safety to the lot, not even for the neighbors, he replaced that wooden retaining walls with the concrete block walls. That is the only violation that the actual owner did during these years, which I think it's possible to pull a building permit for these replacement walls. But there is no hill cut or any changes on these retaining walls which has been built originally, at least in 70s, maybe 35, 36 years ago. And the parking issue, calculating the habitable areas, which is it will be less than 3,500 square feet with the two-car garage. It's required, but the basement, which that is again the original building, part of the basement has a height of more than 7 feet. And because of that height of the basement, which part of that even it's dirt soil, it has been calculated toward the floor area because of the height 7 feet or more. And that brings us to this issue of the three-car garage. And in support of the project, I would like to present to you, I do have some supportive letters from the neighbors.
Okay.
I have a few of them. These are all the neighbors that they agree, they support this.
All right, and it's all the same letter, right?
Oh, no, it's not same.
No,
letter.
I mean different people, same
letter.
Same letter. Okay.
And even I can submit. If you are interested to see the location or the addresses, you do have already there.
Yeah.
But I had a map that it circled all the lots that they supported the project. If you are interested, I can.
Well, if you can find,
Okay.
I've got some questions I want to ask, but I want to give Mr. Duong a chance as the case planner. I wanted to let you go first for a little bit, but I've got some questions. So if you just want to take a little break, I'm going to have Rather present the staff report, and then I'll get back to you with some questions. Okay? And then you can finish up if you've got some other things you want to mention. Okay? Our case planner is Rather Duong. So would you like to present the basics of the staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Krause, and good morning.
Good morning.
The project site, as was mentioned by the applicant, is a hillside property located north of San Luis Rey Drive and south of Selvers Place. The lot is irregular in shape and contains approximately 11,970 square feet and slopes upward from the street towards the rear of the property. The subject lot was developed in 1920 with a single-family residence and a detached garage. The garage is approximately in the same area as what is shown right now with the new garage that was constructed. Now, the original garage has been demolished, and existing architecture of the house as well has been modified. So what's reflected on the drawings behind you is not what the house used to look like. But that's a separate matter on its own. And it's not part of this variance request because it deals with the changes to the design. Also in the back of the property, there are several mature oak trees and cluster oak trees located behind the garage and the primary structure. The subject site and other lots in this neighborhood share many of the same characteristics as you would find on this property. The case came to the planning department through neighborhood services with numerous violations cited, and which involved the unpermitted constructions of the house, retaining walls at the rear, as well as new garage and recreation rooms. These are some of just the main points. All of the violations and what the applicants are asking for are reflected in the staff report and the notice. Unfortunately, however, the unpermitted work that have been identified meet the zoning code requirements or standards that we have in place today. Upon identification of the violation, the applicant instead opted to apply for the setback and standard variance instead of making the necessary corrections to comply with the zoning code. It is staff opinion that this appears to be an egregious use of the variance process that the city have in place. I mean, we're talking about numerous violations here, and it's understandable that, and unfortunate in this case, that the applicant and property owner, for that matter, purchased a property with some or many of these violations in place. I'm not sure to what degree, but if that was the case, it's unfortunate. However, once you purchase a property, you are responsible as the owner for all the violations that exist on this property. But it's also not uncommon for property owners to, in the course through the years, to modify or remodel his or her property, but there are standards that must be complied with depending on what these modifications involve and the scope of the work. In this case, as reflected in the staff report and the notice, the applicant simply made a list of violations and applied for variances as opposed to making an earnest effort in making the corrections in order to bring the project to meet today's standards. As with all variance applications, the applicant is required to make 4 hardship findings to support the variance request. As reflected on the application submitted to the department, the findings provided by the applicant in staff opinion are lacking and do not substantiate the approval of the variance requests. The lot is not unique in this area, and approval of the variances would allow the subject property to enjoy benefits not afforded to other properties in the same neighborhood or area. The hardship appears to be self-imposed in this case. Given that staff cannot make the necessary findings to support the variance applications, the planning department recommends that the zoning administrator or the hearing officer deny all of the requests to deviate from the zoning code under standards and setback variances, case number PVAR 2008-043. And that concludes my brief presentation.
Okay, thanks. Do you know is there a permit record for the original house and garage on file?
Yes.
And what was the date of the original construction? Or at least the permit?
Stated sometime in the 1920s. I don't have the exact date.
The original one-car garage and the house
Correct.
built at the same time? Okay. All right, Mr. Nazarian, then I'm going to let you finish what you started, and then I've got some questions.
Okay. Actually, just I want to add here on the staff report that were mentioned about the applicant, me, instead of trying to do corrections to comply with the today code. which is sort of, the retaining walls are there, and I can't remove any of that walls because this lot, it has been built that way. None of these retaining walls, it has been built or, without permit by the actual owner or even in the last 25, 30 years. And to make a correction there, it's sort of impossible. And the variance, it's only situation, only way that we can legalize this. And for the other issues, the look of the building, the facade, I understand after getting this variance hopefully granted, then I have to apply for a building permit, which I know that I have to go to design review board and to legalize this structure. But again, on this just next door neighbor, which I think that all the lots it has been built that way. This is the subject property. This is the next door property, owner, which again on the property line they do have a high retaining wall.
Okay.
That is I think it's we can find a different properties with the same retaining wall issues. Because maybe the slope of the area, the retaining walls, it's needed, and the only violation for the retaining walls, I'm repeating again, it has been replaced the wooden retaining walls with the concrete block wall, which the building permit could be issued for that by doing the structural calcs or, to legalize the replacement of the wooden with the concrete block wall walls.
Okay.
If you have any question?
Okay, I do. Let's see. Now you're saying that all of the actual floor area additions and the accessory building, the garage with the room on top, they were all built in the 70s or 80s?
All this existing two-car garage
Right.
with the rec room, no.
When was that? When was that
That
built?
was done maybe 2-3 years ago, 2003. But the main structure with the second floor, the main structure, it has been built on 1920s, and the alterations, it has been done on the 1970s, mid-70s or late 70s, I'm not
So
sure.
there was no floor area actually added more recently than that?
No.
Were there some cosmetic changes?
Cosmetic changes.
Okay. So the garage is
The
fairly
garage,
new?
it has been replaced on 2003, one-car garage to
Okay.
two-car garage, yes. With that rec room on the top of that.
Okay.
That is the only recent construction that has been done after 2003.
Okay, let's then focus on that first, since that seems to be easier to get a handle on. See, the overall height is 18 feet, I think.
Overall height, it's 18 feet. Yes.
18 feet. And what's the pitch of the top part of the roof? It doesn't look like it's 3.
Not 3 and 12.
So actually, it could only be 12 feet high then, if it was that design.
Yes.
Not even 15 feet.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one problem. I noticed that the interior dimension of the two-car garage isn't 20 feet, plus the distance between the doors, so it doesn't even qualify as a code-compliant two-car garage.
I agree with
So
that.
that's another issue. Okay.
But just let me add this, that garage building could be fixed. It's a self-standing building.
What do you mean by could be fixed? Because this is what you're applying for. Is
Yeah,
what
I'm
looking
applying
at.
for.
Okay.
But I don't want just the garage building to be a point to deny the request. It could be a condition, to enlarge the garage by 12 inches or 18 inches to give the correct size, or looking to the site plan, the garage building, that accessory building, it's attached to the main structure by a trellis. Even we can take in consideration if that attachment of the two buildings could help to get this approval, we can attach the two buildings together. Instead of having the trellis, I can put the roofing material on top and connect two buildings. Then the height issue, it will be solved automatically.
Solves the height, but it doesn't solve everything. It just changes things around. But this is what you asked for,
Yes,
so that's
yes.
what we're doing. Okay. Your floor plan for the garage doesn't really show where the doors are, right?
Yeah, it's the roof plan, actually, yeah.
No, do we have the garage plan up here? yet?
Let me see.
No, we don't have the garage. The
I think
garage
it
plans.
should be.
Are there any posts inside there, or is it all clear?
All clear.
Okay. All right. And what happens with that rear door on the second floor? What's happening with that? You just walk off the end, and what happens?
For which building you are talking? About the garage building?
Yeah, the garage building. We don't have all the plans up here, but, you walk out the...
Ben, that door, there is a, kind of bridge that from the retaining walls give access to the second floor.
Is that bridge built, or is that proposed?
It's built.
It's built?
There's also a photo of that, the door and the bridge in question.
In
the
photos,
yes,
right.
uh-huh.
Okay. Okay. So, was there any reason why this garage building was built without a permit?
I will let the owner to answer to
Okay.
that question because I didn't discuss that.
Okay. What's the total gross floor area of just the house,
Just the house?
including what you're calling the basement?
Okay. The first floor, it's 1645 square feet.
The first floor being which?
The main floor, the living, which
Well,
is...
let's start with level one. Let's start with the bottom and call that level one, and go up from there.
Okay, the basement, let's say the usable area,
Well,
it's 128 square feet.
128 square feet usable.
Usable, yes. The first floor, it's 1,645 square feet.
Uh-huh.
The second floor, it's 721 square feet.
Uh-huh.
And the loft area, it's 166 square feet, which it gives me a total of 3,092 square feet for the main structure.
Okay, let me stop there. My impression let me ask Mr. Duong, was the three-car garage was required because the square footage was over 3,500 square feet. So
Correct.
must be some
Then I mentioned,
difference of opinion as to what the floor area is. Do you know?
The garage the basement appears to be for the most part, a full basement, even
Okay.
though Mr. Nazarian just stated that only 128
So
square feet. of
that's
it.
where the difference is? We're saying it's actually more than that is counted. Okay.
yeah, in the beginning I talked about that because the height, it's 7 feet or more, so...
Okay, but that's where the discrepancy seems to come in. Okay, well, we don't need to...
And the accessory building,
Uh-huh.
it's the 432
Yeah, that
square
seems to be fairly clear on the
Yeah.
on the plans. Okay. Now then, you said a couple of times then that all the actual floor area on the house was built in, you think, the 1970s.
1970s.
Okay. Your plans don't tell me what's unpermitted. I can't tell from the plans you submitted what has a permit and what doesn't. So why don't we go from Is there any reason why you didn't mark the walls as permitted or unpermitted so I could, or whoever was hearing this case could tell the
Because I
difference?
did my researches, I couldn't find, the original building permit, it's there. But on the 70s, the second floor addition, I couldn't find any record of the building permits.
Right.
So, but with my thought, I consider that all existing. Because even is not, I discussed with the several agents, of the area that they know the house. Maybe one of them, his father or what, relatives sold once that house. They gave me all this information that, mid-70s.
Okay, that's when it was
Or
done.
the end of the 70s, this structure was there with the second floor. And I thought maybe in that time the requirement of the city was different or whatever. So I considered the main structure whole permitted, legal construction.
Okay, well let's give me your best estimate then on what the original house was. The original house included the bottom so-called basement level?
The basement and the, let's say,
The main
floor. Yes.
And that's it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then, if you're trying to get a permit today, then we have the height versus setback issue. So on an older building, you've got to have a 6-foot setback if it's more than 30 feet high. So that's one issue. But also, this is an R1R zone. You can only have 2 stories unless the average current slope below the building is less than, if it's less than 40%, right?
40%.
So this is pretty flat, so maybe you can only have 2 levels.
And actually, the loft is not considered a story.
Yeah, where do you find that?
If you go to the definition of the floor, the loft is not part. It's a
In
story
in all zones? Or just in some zones?
in the definition of the floor,
Yeah.
it doesn't consider the loft as a story. If you go to the definitions of the stories, so the loft is not considered because even on the R1R zones or even in the commercial zones, we did some projects with the loft.
Yeah, that's not
considered-
single family zone though. Rather, have you thought about that? Even the so-called basement level looks like a story to me because the whole side's exposed. So it looks like we have a 4-story building. Well, it is what it is, so we won't dwell on that. But your best guess is that just the bottom 2 levels were
Bottom
the
2 levels.
original house.
Bottom 2 levels with that pitch roof.
Yeah. What's the pitch on the upper part? Is that at least 3 and 12? You've got it marked.
I do have it. It's 3.5 in 12,
3.5 and 12. Okay.
and the lower roof it's 4.
Yeah. Well, the lower roof is it's the top part that
Top part
would need
is
to be at
3.5
least 3 and 12
yes.
to qualify for the extra
Yes.
3 feet. Okay. Okay, and you're saying all of these retaining walls, at least some, there aren't any brand new ones. They're all replacement. The ones that are
replacement.
block.
There is none brand new retaining wall.
Okay. Do you know what the average current slope of the whole property is? Because that has an impact on the amount of grading you can do too.
No, I don't have it, but I can provide. By having a survey, I can calculate.
Because if it's over a certain amount, then you have to have 40%
40%,
ungraded
yeah.
open space too. Okay. All right. Maybe we'll have some more questions after everybody else gets finished testifying. So
Thank you.
thanks. Thank you. Okay, then we'll go to the next speaker, which is Kundakin, John Kundakin, the owner? Did you still want to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Come on up.
Good morning.
Good
My
morning.
name is John Dekurikin, the property owner. And this is regarding about the property, actually. It's 1370 OPG Way.
Right. Is there anything you want to add that Garo hasn't already mentioned or to address?
Yes. I guess you had a question about the garage, why it's been...
Yeah, well, I mean, the obvious question is why, if you know the answer, why was it something like that built without a building permit?
Absolutely. I can tell you. Because at the end of the day, I'm the owner of the property and the bus stops here. So I'm fully responsible for all the alteration or whatever done my time or previously. Garage was tilted in a tour to the Dave Silverman to the next door, and I got his permission also. And instead of doing that, actually, because actual garage was no foundation, it was just just a small shack in there, and it was tilted completely, and it was going to fall to his house actually.
Okay.
So that's what we did. I hired the architect. Until now, I work with the 4 architects, except Domus Design. I hired previously because of the city of Glendale didn't want to deal with me anymore because of having a different architect, and each of them, they have their own opinion to approach. So meanwhile, my contractor, as I'm not a contractor, as many people, they might refer. So
You hired somebody to actually build the garage?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So it was done through the contractor, several contract we changed. And knowingly, it's we always search a non-expensive, so we end up having more problems in our hand today. And we are here today face to this board. And to my neighbors, knowingly, again, I'm responsible for everything. So if any other questions?
Okay.
No.
I mean, I'm assuming that Garo's said everything. You don't know any more about the stuff that was done prior
Property?
to your purchasing the property as
It's
to
been
what?
about 1927
Yeah.
for Hollywood producer. And they owned approximately whole area.
Okay.
There, it was a circular driveway and a large driveway. All the streets, I have just a small pictures actually, and people who lived in there, they give us just notes and everything. I have a picture of the Ford 115 sitting in the front of the house, which is one of the nicest picture. Anyway, all these things done by Mr. Zopparelli in the 70s, 80s. He told me by himself, actually.
Is that who you bought the property from?
Yes, I am. And knowingly, not knowingly, what I mean is certain things he didn't tell me exactly what's going on, but he said, I did some alteration and stuff. If in case you need to approach to the city, I'm sure of it. It will be resolved. And I do have some pictures over here. If some people, they think it's a large 4-story house. It is not, because from left side of the property to the right side of the property, we have about 4 to 5 feet slope. So this is the actual picture.
Okay. You want to leave that for the record then? Okay. And these are different than what we already have, it looks like.
Absolutely. It's been done by survey and how it's looked like, what it's supposed to be. And basement and everything was existing in the first floor and the second floor. All the alteration was done by garage, so it's done by me again, and a back retaining wall also, fixing, making secure, not for only as neighbors, as for my family too. I have a special ed child. My first daughter is 19 years old and is special, and for her to be safe in there. And the recreational room specifically, I built it for her. So in the future, instead of her going to the anything homes or convalescent home, so she can stay in there and be cared through us. So exactly, that's a general idea. Otherwise, thank you for coming here and for supporting our project, all my neighbors. And those who have been negative, I can only say 2 things. Don't be negative, be positive. Help your neighbors, and they will help you. I guess only that brief moment I can leave. Again,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. The next speaker is Jacqueline Castleman.
Morning, Mr.
Good morning.
I'm a concerned neighbor. I'm here not on a personal matter, but just to expect that the city would require all of its residents to abide by rules, regulations, and laws for the safety and goodwill of everyone. Being that I live right next door, it's very important. Thank you very much.
Okay, and you're to which side?
I'm on the uphill side,
The uphill
west
side.
side. Mhm.
West side, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Myrna Stanley.
Good morning, Mr. Kraus.
Good morning.
Myrna Stanley with Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association. I just want to tell you that we have been peripherally involved with this project for 5 years. And it's difficult to know where to start with this project in talking to you because the requests that are being made are so over the top that I was actually, to listen to Mr. Nazarian, we should all pack our bags and go because everything is everybody else's fault. But I was happy to hear the property owner say that he was responsible for everything. So that's a good place to start. You have all the comments from the various departments, from forestry to traffic to fire. It's just incredible. There are no hardships here to this property that we could see. Everything, as Mr. Duong said, that are self-imposed as far as we can see. This lot, actually, to the front, he could have expanded to the front if he needed to with permits, obviously. But our concern here over the 5 years has been the disregard for the laws, for the stop work order, and that continues to. This public hearing has been delayed twice because of the lack of posting on the site. So it just shows an intent that I hope I'm misreading, and I hope the property owner wants to bring everything in compliance. That garage just has to go, and I'm looking forward to seeing this project go to the design review. Thank you for bringing up the full basement issue because that's always been a concern. I have walked by this house, I can't tell you how many times with my dog, and I've seen workers out there every single day sometimes, and I know stop work orders have been issued, and it continues. And you hate to keep calling neighborhood services, just saying, what's going on here? The loft also you need to address. What else do we need to talk about? I can't tell you how many properties that people at our annual meeting come up and say and ask what's going on with that house on Upro Peachy, because it appears to be a hodgepodge of development that nothing matches. And I understand that's going to design review, but if it affects not only that property, it affects the entire neighborhood and the property values. So again, I don't know if you have any questions, but there's more questions raised now today than there were before. The property owner, I'm sure he understands, it doesn't make any difference how and what conditions you buy the property. Once you own it, you're responsible for it. That's it. We can't go back to the former owner.
Well, do you have any angle on the history at all?
No, but I do know that code enforcement has some photos that you probably, of the house from a long time ago from former infractions. I've seen the house before all this was done, of course, and
it was just the bottom two levels?
As far as I could see, yeah.
In the garage, we have a pretty good idea.
Right, and there's been questions on that basement because it was used to be covered with a tarp, as was the garage when it was being built. You didn't know what was going on. But that basement area has always been a concern and raised a lot of questions. You didn't know if it was going to be for another vehicle or what it was. It went on for a long time. So I don't know how Glendale's code read, and the idea of connecting the garage with the house with the trellis, oh, please, making it an attached garage. I hope the code doesn't read and allow that.
Well, actually it does, but it doesn't solve all of the problems, so.
So can it be an open trellis and be considered attached?
No.
Okay.
No, so I mean, this is what they're asking for, but.
Right.
But
right,
if,
right.
all other things being equal outside of this, they could put a solid roof, connect it. That would take care of only the height issue.
That
Doesn't
sure
take,
would
doesn't take care of the setback.
improve the look of things, wouldn't it? See, it's almost like you have to flatten it and start all over again and
Some of
get
that,
him what
as
he
you know,
needs.
is going to be a design review
Right.
issue if
Right.
we get to that point. But
Right.
simply connecting the two isn't going to resolve the.
Nope. It'll raise
Going
more.
to buy
more.
4 feet of setback, but you'd still have to move. You'd still have to move it over.
And the fire department has issues with that, with the lack of the required setback for that garage. I mean, there's a reason we have setbacks.
You've got the. I didn't even mention this in the eave overhangs. Again, they have to be 30 inches away. So that's another. From the property line, so that's another issue. Even if it were just the garage, a 12 or 15 foot high building,
Structure.
regardless of how many levels, right? It doesn't really matter. But the eaves would have to be 30 inches
Eave
away.
overhang.
So if you cut the eaves off, that would affect the look too. So that's a minor,
Well,
but it's still an issue.
staff couldn't make the findings. Obviously, we couldn't. And if you'll please consider the remarks from the other departments. There's certainly cogent remarks that were made, and somebody needs to take care of those and watch the oaks. And as far as him replacing the retaining walls, that's the first I've ever heard of it. I don't know if it, even if it's true. You can't go building cement blocks. There's nothing unusual about this property. The other homes that go up slope are probably on steeper slopes in this house, and they have far less of a flat front yard than this property does. So I'm looking forward to your decision, Mr. Kraus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And one more speaker, Dennis Geyer.
Good morning, Mr. Kraus. My name is Dennis Geyer. And one thing I wanted to speak to today is that they've asked to have a variance because that the project would not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon the property in the vicinity and the zone in which the property is situated. I think if you do grant the variances, it does give them special privileges because the amount of violations here go far above what any of us have ever seen here in the city of Glendale that have watched these projects go up. The city, so many of the, I went through the 34 pages, and so many of the city departments have had serious problems with the design and the lack of these permits. It's just basically, I'm going to build it and give me a fine later and I'll take care of it. And that has to stop in the city of Glendale. So today I am asking you to carefully consider your decision to the city and those neighbors who live in the area and all of the work and effort all the departments have had to put in on this, and that your decision needs to be fair to those city departments and to the neighbors. And I hope and look forward to a positive decision from you, Mr. Kraus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you're not aware of any of the history? Do you know anything?
The only history I know of was I received a call from a neighbor asking if I knew if there were permits. They were doing a lot of construction work across the, they lived across the street. And I said, well, let me drive by and take a look because I don't get up that way to see the house. And when I got up there, there were workers in the front doing some landscaping. So I called the city and I said, do we have a permit on this house? And they said, yes, we have a permit pulled for landscaping. So I called the neighbor back and I said, you know, it's a permit just for landscaping, and we would never become involved really with that. That's not what we do. Yeah. And so I think
you being the Verdugo Woodlands West
Verdugo
Homeowners
Woodlands,
Association.
yes, at the time. And I said, so, you know, it should be fine. If they have a permit to do that, and it shouldn't. And that's about probably 03 or 04, probably when everything began. And then I went by another day, as Myrna said, not the other day, but a long time ago now, and I saw the blue tarps, and I thought, wow, I didn't think we were expecting rain. I had no idea why these blue tarps were up there. And then another big blue tarp went over the garage. And I thought, well, that's odd, too. Maybe they're plastering or something. They don't want to get plaster over the rest of the... It was very odd that everything was hidden from the neighbors until one day they came down, and we took a look at what was actually been built.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Garo, did you like to give you some time, and if you want to try and answer
Very
anything?
brief. Just I want to add here, I came here, I talked about the history and best of my knowledge what's happened on this property. I am not telling whose fault it is, the neighbors, they have to pack and go and leave the owner alone. We discussed about the history and about the information that I could gather for this property, which I told the construction, the second floor addition, and the retaining walls, all it has been done on 70s. Just I'm trying to legalize that because as far as I know, there are some violations, even if the retaining walls that we couldn't find any permit, it's a non-permitted construction, but really today, to remove that retaining walls, it's not possible. And the hillside will be disturbed. And just that we are here, even the owner, it's about 8 months, 9 months that I'm working with the owner, that they hired me. Really, I see he's willing to legalize all these issues, violations that it inherited from the past, without knowing which it was permitted, not permitted. We are trying to legalize that, and his intention always was to have a good relation with the neighbors. And the one thing that I wanted to add again, I didn't find any change on the footprint of the building. I think the main structure, it's on the original footprint size. If
that's your
70s, it has been added the second floor. That's right, but no addition, no building footprint changes during all these years. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Garo. Rather, did you want to add anything? Is there anything that needs clarification that you've heard?
No.
Okay. All right. I know there was one permit in here, as I recall, that didn't seem to show the footprint being the same.
No, because that permit involved work to the front of the property.
Yeah, so I don't know
That's
how
lamp
accurately
posts and-
they drew that. That was still showing the one-car garage, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, well then I'll close this case, take it under submission, and I'll be issuing a decision in the very near future. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, let me open up the next case. Just a second here. Okay, the next case is case number PVAR 2009-027, 1326 Barrington Way. The applicant is Brett Warner. The case planner is Milka Toledo. This is an application for a variance to legalize a 330-square-foot addition to the rear of an existing single-family house without providing the required 2 covered and enclosed parking spaces at 1326 Barrington Way in the R1650 medium-high density residential zone. And this is a portion of Lot 21, tract number 6178. So, Ms. Toledo, would you like to give the staff report first?
Yes, thank you. I'm Milka Toledo, the case planner for this project. As stated, the property is located in the 1650 medium high density residential zone. The property is surrounded by both single-family and multifamily development. However, again, it is all zoned R1650 throughout. Just to briefly go over the analysis as presented in the staff report, the site is developed with a one-story single-family house and a detached garage. The proposal today is to legalize an existing 330-square-foot addition at the rear of the house without providing a required enclosed parking space. The addition appears to have been built years ago without approval of a building permit, and presently there is a one-car detached garage which serves the existing residence. The garage dimensions are approximately 12 feet by 30 feet, actually that would be 30 feet wide by 30 feet deep, and today's code requires that upon expansion of or floor area expansion, a two-car garage is required, and that would consist of a 20 by 20 interior clearance. The addition itself does not create additional code violations as it relates to setbacks, floor area ratio, lot coverage, height, or landscaping. Some of the site characteristics that should be taken into account would be the rear of the lot, for example, consists of 2 mature trees. One of the trees is a protected tree under the city's ordinance, which is an oak tree. It has a canopy of approximately with a 3-foot drip line, and the canopy extends a large portion of it over the existing garage roof. The second tree is located across from the oak tree to the west. It is a Brazilian pepper tree, and that tree, unlike the oak tree, is not protected. The city's urban forester did comment on this project, and they concluded that the oak tree appeared to have been indiscriminately pruned in the past, and that resulted in the canopy not being reflective, the canopy was not reflective of a substantial tree structure. So she recommends removing and replacing the oak tree with the same species in another area on the site where the roots in the canopy do not encroach upon or interfere with any buildings or overhead wires. In addition, a condition has been included to plant a new street tree in the public right-of-way. And based on a recent conversation with the applicant, his desire is to keep the existing oak tree and is amenable to planting a street tree. Both the existing oak tree and the Brazilian pepper tree, again, are located in the rear yard. The trunk of the oak is located less than 1 foot away from the garage wall, and therefore the roots and the canopy are encroaching onto the building itself. So to require the expansion of the garage would, in order to create a code-compliant two-car garage, would require removal of the oak tree. Further, if the tree is removed, the existing oak tree may undermine, or in this case, the existing garage may need to be demolished if we require if the tree is removed. So that is a possibility. The oak trees are protected under the city's ordinance, and while the subject site is modern in size and regular in shape, the location of the trees at the rear yard is a unique condition applicable to the property that hinders any garage expansion. Having said that, there were some options that were explored to see whether or not a code-compliant garage would be feasible on this site. For example, as stated earlier, presently the garage is located 2 feet from the easterly property line and 3 feet from the rear property line. The garage is a straight drive condition. Initially, I thought that it didn't meet the 25-foot turn radius, but that's been corrected.
So it looks like the current one car, you can drive straight in, right?
It appears that way.
Okay.
The zoning code does require a detached garage to be located 5 feet from any interior property line in a multifamily zone with a 25-foot turn radius, and that would be for a code-compliant garage under today's standards. The other option, again, that we explored would be, for example, to have the garage built with a straight design, and that would require and that would again be with a 20 by 20 interior clearance would require pushing back the garage further towards the rear in order to introduce the 25-foot turn radius, because then that would again trigger the setback issue if you're going to construct a new garage, expand the garage obviously to 20 by 20, and then the 25-foot turn radius in order to have full compliance. So facilitating a 25-foot turn radius would entail widening the driveway at the rear yard, which would require removing a portion of the addition, which they're trying to legalize, and removal of existing landscaping in the rear yard. Alternatively, designing the garage with 90-degree ingress would require removal of both trees and losing a large portion of the rear yard. So regardless of if the garage is designed with a 90-degree axis or straight ingress with a 25-foot turn radius, one or both trees would need to be removed, and a large portion of the rear yard would be lost. So again, as indicated, there are 4 findings that would need to be met in order for this variance to be approved. So in the analysis, staff does believe that the 4 findings can be made in a positive manner. For example, the variance is justified on the basis that the strict application of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship, and that the location of the oak tree precludes expansion of the garage. To require 20-foot width for the garage by denying the request would require removal of the oak tree, which would be inconsistent with preserving native plant life and the associated ecosystem that supports on-site. Different options again were explored in order to make parking situation code compliant. However, each option resulted in additional code issues, which undermines the existing site conditions. So after examining various scenarios, it is the removal of the oak tree that creates a chain of events. The location of the existing mature trees in the rear yard are a unique condition applicable to the property. So legalizing the existing 330 square foot house addition will be in keeping with and will not disturb the character of the existing residence. The proposal will not be detrimental to the public welfare since the addition to the house is similar to existing uses in the community. It's a 1-story addition. It's located at the rear of the house. It will not create additional code violations as it relates to height, setback, floor area ratio, lot coverage, and landscaping. It would require design review to assure aesthetic compatibility with the existing house and the neighborhood.
But it would be, it's capable of being exempted.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
it would, design review would apply.
Would apply, it's exemptable
Okay.
under code standards.
Okay.
Finally, granting of the variance would not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. Legalizing the house addition while not providing 2 covered and enclosed parking spaces would allow the preservation of an existing on-site oak tree and open space. So therefore, staff recommends that the zoning administrator, in this case the hearing officer, approve the variance request with the following to be considered. And these are some suggested conditions. That the project shall obtain design review approval or exemption prior to obtaining a building permit, to address the recommendations and or conditions mentioned in the tree permit planting standard memo dated August 13th of 2009 that was submitted by the urban forester.
For the street tree.
Correct.
Okay.
And to address all code compliant violations on the property. And that concludes staff presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Toledo. Let me ask the applicant to come forward. Brett Warner.
Morning. Thank you very much, all. Pleasure to be here. It was a tough act to follow, but
That was fairly mild.
little history in the property. We purchased the property a few months back, and the property was condemned and had several issues with the code services, and probably more so the occupants, which involved several police issues and all that. So I think the neighborhood and all concerned at the city are probably happy that the property is receiving a full remodel of the property. So we're doing our best to finish that up, subject to the approval of the variance. The current garage is a 12 by 30 garage. We do house a couple cars in there for workers right now. They're compact, so they're tight. No doubt it's tight. And technically it is a single-car garage. I think, again, the strict application of the ordinance would mean basically removing all the trees and all of the yard in its entirety. And I think that we're trying to keep the house a family home. It's a three-bedroom, two-bath garage. I mean, three-bedroom, two-bath. So there will probably be no backyard if the new garage is built. That would be unfortunate, but if that's a finding, so be it. So we will the similar homes in the area, of the same vintage, which are actually quite a few, either have one-car garages or have actually converted their one-car garage into living space, probably way back in time. So I think we're very consistent with, at least how the existing homes in the area are at this particular time. We are doing everything we can to preserve the traditional construction of the property, so we are not changing anything on the exterior. Other than an interior remodel, there will nothing be changed on the outside except for new painting and new landscaping, which is actually going to be occurring next week. So the coverage is a relatively low coverage. No new construction. I think the big aspect for us not having to do a new garage is to save noise for the neighbors, because we've been trying to do everything we can with the neighbors to try to keep noise levels down and be done with the project hopefully in another 30 days pending this review. So it is a small lot. The condition of the small lot obviously makes it more difficult to build a garage because there is an existing setback. So we have basically 40 feet less to work with by 50 feet in the rear, which makes it very difficult to place a two-car garage with a turning radius of the 25 feet without compromising the entire garage. The drive aisle to the garage is a straight shot. The garage is a 12 by 30, and the running length of the driveway is about 70 feet. So in reality, I think we could probably put 4 or 5 vehicles in there, depending upon whether people actually use their garages for cars or not. But it is there along with the driveway. So I'm hoping that the findings that were mentioned by staff will support the approval. We would like to hopefully receive the exception from design review, as we're not changing anything to the exterior of the house. The addition was built in 1958. It was a permitted addition as a patio. The patio was converted, it looks like, shortly thereafter with a full fireplace into a den and bedroom. And it was fully, the siding was traditional in keeping with the original house. So that looks like that addition was done probably in the early 60s. Okay, but the original 330 square feet was permitted. It was just permitted as a covered patio, and then later converted to code. And we are willing to meet with building officials to make sure everything is to code to date, which we have pending applications ready to go, subject to the full approval of this variance. And that's all I have to say. I'm available to any questions.
Yes, I have a few questions. You're saying the addition the patio was permitted in '58. I thought the permit records show that the permit was at 1952.
Oh, I could be wrong.
Okay. Isn't that your recollection?
In the 50s, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then you're thinking that it was converted to floor area in the early 60s, probably?
Probably even the 50s, because the condition of the slab is very old, and the lumber was a 2x3 lumber, and the fireplace was very old. So it looks like it was probably, if not an immediate addition,
right after.
It happened right after.
Yeah, because the siding almost looks older than what they would have done even in the 50s. But
yeah, it's the exact same siding, wrapped around the whole house. So it kind of tells me it was done very quickly after, or maybe it was the intent when they pulled the patio permit. I don't know.
Okay. Let me ask a few questions then. Where's the pointer? There it is. You say it was converted to a den and a bedroom. So obviously these walls are there. Are these walls there right now?
Those are studded out.
Meaning what?
We built them.
You built them?
Yeah.
So
There was one wall running right down the middle.
This way?
No, the other way.
This way.
There was one wall running right down, separating the den, which had the fireplace, and then the other was a bedroom. So that was a condition when we entered the house.
And so there was no, so the proposed bathroom, you're proposing regular bathroom
Yeah.
fixtures in there?
Yes.
Okay. So that's not there now? Okay.
All right. And I don't know if you've been by it but it's come along really good, and the neighbors are all very happy about how it's going to look.
Okay. How about the floor of this area? Is it a raised foundation? Is it a slab?
Slab.
Does it match up with the floor of the old house?
There's a step down going into it.
There's a step down from the house?
From the house into it, but it's the slab itself is probably a 10-inch slab, when you step down into it. So it was a large slab, and it's a single step.
Single step, and then, so that's, the addition is not raised, it's just a slab.
Slab.
Okay. And the fireplace, is it functional now?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
actually looked like it was built to code, so I was very surprised I couldn't find a permit on it.
Well, they could have built it as part of the patio, an outdoor
Could have been, yeah.
fireplace, I suppose. Okay. The garage itself is, according to your plans, 20 by 30 inside.
No, it's 12 by 30.
I'm sorry, 12 by 30 inside, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the door is how big again? It's on your plans, and it's off center. 8 foot something
Yeah, it's
wide.
9 feet wide.
And how high is it?
Oh, it's probably about 8 feet.
So it's either at or above standard?
Yeah,
Okay.
single entry.
Can you, how easy is it to open?
It's easy to open, yeah.
Does it swing up, sideways?
Swings up,
Up.
yeah.
So it's
Got a handle and pulls up.
Okay.
It's on hinges,
Okay.
springs.
And the inside is all one level? There's no step up or step down? No interior walls? No water heaters? No storage? Nothing?
Nope.
Okay.
An A-frame, so it has a little rafter going across, but it's clear span.
Okay. And let's see, the front patio, are you proposing to leave that the same with the columns holding it up the
Yeah,
way
we
it
actually
is?
took down certain and put up the columns.
Okay,
We
what was holding it up before?
wrought iron.
Yeah, I thought we had wrought iron in the photos.
Well, you probably are. We put columns up to hold the corners, and we took all the other posts down along the patio.
Okay.
It has been an open patio and will remain to be an open patio.
And that looks like original construction?
Yep.
And I think you said in your application it's a 1929 house?
Yeah, 1929.
Where did you get that information from?
I think the original permit.
Did you find one?
Because
Because I didn't see one. No.
Maybe it was on the brochures, the publications when we bought it.
Because I'm thinking it could even be a decade older than that.
Yeah, no.
If there's no, if we couldn't, okay, you didn't see a permit, right? I didn't see one in that body of information.
Yeah, I think
So
maybe
could
the
he-
publications just said 1929.
Okay.
So
Like I
that's
said,
not-
it could be even a decade older than that. Okay, let's see, what else did I have?
Yeah, the houses across the street that are of the same vintage and the same siding, they have columns and all that, so we just stayed in keeping with the neighborhood.
What's your overall budget for this complete renovation? Because you're doing an awful lot of work, and
I'm not too sure where it'll wind up.
I mean, the reason that normally we don't get into money, but you're asking for a deviation from the code, and you wonder, well, does this make a lot of sense in terms
Financially?
of Well, not from your point, but I mean in terms of putting a lot of money in. The idea is to gradually eliminate nonconformities to a large extent. So this has a nonconforming parking situation.
Yeah.
So, by the more money you spend, the less likely it's ever going to have certain things up to code. So
Well, we're
it seems
trying to
like
do
you're
everything
spending
we
a lot
can
of money.
with the house and the outside appearance and the physical appearance of the house, including the garage we fixed up. We, put a new, not a new garage, we refaced it, the garage, so it looks better because it was damaged. So the answer is we're putting a fair amount of money into it to do the right job, and we want to follow through with the code job because it was we didn't know what was going to be done with the house. It was a project that I have an 18, 19-year-old kids, and I wanted to get them involved in understanding certain things. I'm a commercial real estate. I do industrial real estate.
Okay.
So it's really where the project started. It just took on a whole new meaning.
So how difficult is it going to be to get the bathroom in there? Break up the slab and run it, or you figured that out yet?
Yep, it's already there. And we're just waiting for inspection.
Okay.
If we get this, I said, look, I can't.
Well, did we approve a permit for that?
No, I'm pulling it.
Or
I've got it already written out, and if we move forward with this, then I'm just going to go walk.
So the rough plumbing is in?
Yeah, but it hasn't been covered. The inspector was there
okay.
yesterday.
All right.
So the inspector was there to check out the house, the initial house, and checked it out.
I'm talking about for the new bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so obviously the oak tree is part of the issue. It doesn't look like the city, in its infinite wisdom, has a real problem letting you remove the tree. So what's your take on that?
It's alive and active. It's not distressed. So and it has a pretty good canopy. So we kind of thought we wanted the Brazilian pepper is huge.
Yeah, and I mean, so you've already got a lot of shade with the Brazilian pepper, so the oak isn't quite as important.
No, but it's a good-looking tree. It'd be a shame to take it down. I didn't have the intent really to take it down. If the city thinks I need to take it down,
well, if you do, then it provides room for the two-car garage. Then the only question is the turning radius to make that work. You'd have to
straight in. It still doesn't meet.
Part of the addition would have to come off.
Well, all of it would probably, because we have a 5-foot setback and it's 20 feet.
Well, not all of it.
Part of it, maybe.
But then he may not comply with landscaping requirements.
That's something, looks like there might be some concrete that could be removed. Well, you saw the last case we had was a rather extreme case of doing things without permits, and it's an example of where you have a lot more options if you come in asking for things on paper than you do after they're built. Same thing here. If you were to come in today and that addition weren't there, you would have room to build the garage, take the oak tree down, build the garage, and put the addition with a slightly different design.
I think if you look at the addition, though, it was done. Obviously, the setbacks are same. It was an extension.
Right.
It flows very well. I mean, it's it's surely an attribute to the house, but you're right. If it was never there.
So again, we've got the 4 findings to work with. So I'm going to ask you to concentrate on that in your own way. But the big thing with a variance is, and you mentioned other properties in the same single-family zone, everybody that wants to add has to provide the parking, whether it's an apartment building, a duplex, or single-family house. So the general question is, why should we let you have a 1-car garage when everybody else that wants to do the same thing has to provide a 2-car garage with the same size?
Yeah, I think. If I'm looking in the area, most of the garages have been converted.
Well, that's not a good thing.
No, I know it's not a good thing, but I think it's just the matter of fact, I guess.
That just makes things worse.
It makes things worse.
Yeah. That doesn't help your case.
Yeah, But I'm saying, we have the garage. Really, when we looked at it, was a 2-car garage. It just wasn't a traditional 2-car garage because you can foot. I mean, I took a photo with 2 cars in there.
Do you have that photo for the record?
I don't know if I emailed that to you or not. No. Okay. No.
That would have been nice to. You didn't really build on that very much, but that helps a little bit.
No, but I did mention it.
Yeah,
I've got it in my notes here. That
I know
a 2-car garage.
You mentioned it, but it would have been nice to have a
photo
of 2 cars actually.
They're 2 compacts.
Sure. Well, why don't you do that and provide it to Ms. Toledo, and we can put that in the record.
Forward that to you today.
But again, the big question is, we make everybody else do this, why not you? What's so different about your situation?
Well, I think
that's sort of the main, the number, the B finding, the second one. What exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property that don't apply generally? So I've got another property in a R1650 zone, has a single-family house on it. They want to add. We make them provide a 2-car garage or larger, depending on the size of the unit.
I think the nature of the lot being 100 feet in depth means that there's an absolute compromise of the entire backyard. The entire backyard probably would be consumed by the driveway and radiuses of a new 2-car garage. Okay? So we really wouldn't have, whether it's required or not, a rear yard. And that seems to be, a hardship for a property owner to compromise for a family home. But,
well, the other possibility is why even an addition. At some point, you run up to a limit, whether it's floor area ratio or something. So why not just eliminate turn it back into a patio and be done with it? What would be the hardship associated with the property in doing that?
Well, it's a 3-bedroom house, so now you'd be converting it to a 2-bedroom house, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house.
Well, again, that's justifying something on the basis that it's already there.
Yeah. Well, the existing bedrooms were there. I mean, the old bedroom in the back and a den.
But if it's not legal, it's just
no. I understand.
If it's not legal, then you're asking to essentially put it there.
Yeah.
So why, what's the hardship with a 2-bedroom house in more stock condition and a patio?
I couldn't bring up the house to code. Probably wouldn't have touched it.
Oh, you wouldn't have, or you couldn't?
Well, I couldn't, because it was unfeasible to do, for one, and
why is that?
Well, because it was it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that just didn't, wouldn't have warranted anything being put into it, and I guess that would be a really unfortunate thing, for the neighborhood because it was a disaster. I don't know if you never read the code violations on it, through code services, but we took 4 40-yard containers of stuff out of the house. It was just a disaster. So we tried to bring everything up to code, that we possibly could.
Except this.
Yeah, we accepted a 2-car garage. We're going to bring the addition itself up to code, per the inspectors.
Well, you said there were 2x3 studs. Are you going to have to replace those?
Yeah.
So effectively, what's there is going to have to go.
No, because there's only 2x3 studs from. If you look at the back of the property line to the back wall was traditional studs, but older, and then the return wall coming back to the street to the
on the driveway side.
The driveway side were non-traditional studs.
But the back wall is 2x4s.
Yeah, back wall is 2x4s.
And the side wall's 2x3s.
Yeah, I'm thinking when they built the fireplace, it was built to a higher standard. Why, I don't know. But we've replaced most of it.
What did you replace?
2x4. We just replaced the 2x3s with 2x4.
So you already replaced the sidewall?
Yes.
With no permit?
I'm pulling a permit.
But you don't have a permit now?
No, I do not have a permit now. Okay. We got a lot of stuff done early before we realized what we were getting into, so we stopped everything. until pending the outcome of this. But we've had inspectors over, not to hide anything, because that's how we do things.
Okay, so to conclude, is there anything you want to finish up with, and then we'll be done?
No, I think the fact that the size of the lot, the radius of the new car garage, really is a factor for not compromising what is otherwise an amenity and a requirement under code for a rear yard. So I think that's the biggest thing that would be compromised by, and as a hardship, for the house had we been required to, or if we're required to build a new two-car garage. And the irony is, I probably wouldn't do it. It just destroys, the neighborhood and the house, I think. Just because it's too small, the house, the lot's too small.
How about the street parking? Pretty tight?
Well, it's open, both street parking, but it's a...
No, but I mean as far as the use of it. You got parking's allowed on both sides.
Yeah,
there's no time limit there, is there?
No time limit, but it's probably a tighter street. It's not 60, I don't think.
No, I think it's 50 right of way, but again, it's dead end and looks like it's heavily used. So even if I stack cars, if I wanted to move one and get to the other one, I might have difficulty in getting the one car out of the way onto the street to move the second one.
Yeah. I think what we have, though, is because of the two-car nature of the garage we have, at least how we view it as the 12 by 30, in a driveway approach that's 70 feet long, parking for us off-site is not a problem.
Yeah, it's getting in and out.
Backing up,
right.
Yeah, which is the case on any of the houses there.
Okay, so why don't you get the photograph?
Yeah, I'll have that to you today.
And we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else, Ms. Toledo, did you want to add anything? Okay, thank you. Oh, you did?
Just that the property is currently yellow tagged.
Okay, both the house and the garage?
I just saw the sign on the front house. I don't...
Yeah, he allowed us to remove it.
Okay.
The code services. He saw the
so
progress we were
the yellow
making.
tags are gone off both buildings? Or were they ever on? They were on both?
I think it was on the main house.
The main house,
Yeah.
okay.
I think this was an occupant issue more than
Well,
anything
yeah,
else,
so...
but I think they threw the book at him, and probably deservingly so. But, but I think we spent 2 weeks into the house cleaning it up, and then they came out and looked at it and said, all right, you're on the right track.
Okay.
So.
All right, so it's not that... It's not falling down, so...
Oh, no.
So it's safe to go in.
I think you'd be really impressed with it, but because we're trying to do it right. I think they're happy with things anyway. So other than maybe the neighbors, we're doing work on there, so we're trying to keep noise levels down.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
So with that, I'll close this case, take it under submission, and today's hearings are closed. Thank you for coming. We're adjourned.